Welcome to the Grieving Sisters. I'm Jessica.
I'm Elizabeth.
And we're so
Sometimes we're like being silly before we start recording and then start laughing.
And then it's like, how are we laughing about something? It's just,
I know.
We're
It's like, we're here to talk about grief.
yeah,
We have to get into
serious. But we do have a special guest today, and Nina, which I know everybody knows Nina because listen, her stuff is fabulous. I absolutely love all of the things that she posts, and we connected on Threads because I feel like I was seeing more things about you on Threads versus Instagram, which was weird because the algorithm on the Grieving Sisters on Instagram, it's grief, and it's all the people, everyone that's being a resource for grief. But I'm not going to hold you to it. I want you to be able to introduce yourself and tell us what you do, and we can get into how we got there.
Sure. Well, regardless of where we found each other, I'm so happy and grateful to connect with both of you and your stories. My heart goes out to you both, obviously, for the painful reasons we're here, and also thank you for the work that you're doing. I'll start with, I remember one of the first conversations I ever had on my show was with another bereaved sister, and she said there is more literature on sibling loss than on pet loss than there is on sibling loss.
Yeah.
And that opened my eyes because that resonated with how my story got started. And that was back to, let's say, September 11th, 2019. So it's 6.5 years to almost to the day.
Yeah.
My brother, only sibling, his name was Joseph. He passed the day after his 32nd birthday. And obviously that just upended my life as I knew it.
Sorry.
Navigating, thank you. And navigating the days after, I mean, we celebrated his birthday September 10th. I lived in Miami at the time, was in real estate, decided out of a hunch. I had just gotten a house under contract. I was happy, but it's an exhausting day. It was like almost 8:00. And something nudged me to just go drive up the hour north and go say happy birthday to him. And normally I wouldn't do that because I'm tired. It's after work. Like, who wants to do all the things, right? But something pushed hard enough to where I asked my husband, and he said, yeah, let's go, cut him a cake, whatever. We were supposed to do something during the weekend. And that particular day, we just decided to drive up, and thank goodness we did, because that's the last time I saw him. I didn't know he was going to die the next day. So he didn't even get to live out a full 24 hours as a 32-year-old. That was just, how it is. Like, it just rewrites the story of your entire life. So woke up the next day, not a sister anymore, so I thought it was really hard to navigate, because as you are entering the shock, trying to understand right from left, up from down after the loss, we come from a small family. Not that losing a sibling from a larger family doesn't hurt. It's just more like the rupture feels perhaps a bit louder. It's more front and center because there's so many, there's just such a void that they leave behind. And in trying to figure out this grief thing that I'm feeling, because I thought, okay, well, the worst thing in my life took maybe 2 to 4 weeks to get over. Let's double that time to be generous. And so in like 8 to 10 weeks, I should be better.
Yeah.
Right. So that rolls around 8 to 10 weeks. I'm feeling worse than ever. This is terrifying. And I said, okay, this is clearly I'm having a first of its kind life experience. And I need more tools, and I don't know what I'm up against because this is horrible. So I call one of my best girlfriends. Her mother unfortunately passed from breast cancer 10 months prior. So I call her and I'm like, hey, I need to know, when does this end? How does it go away? Give me a timeline. I need a time frame. And she says, oh, honey, I'm in the baking aisle. It was around the holidays at that time. So she said, I'm in the baking aisle looking for, like Christmas cookie molds to make with my kids. And I just start bawling because I remember my mom. And this is grief at 10 months. And she said, it's going to take a lot longer than you think. Please show yourself grace.
That's it.
And I hung up. I thanked her. I hung up and I said, yeah, no, that's not going to be me. That's, your experience. And in all my ignorance about grief, I said, I respect that that's your experience, but I need to find a different way because I can't take 10 months of this. So me now looks at that version of me with so much grace and so much love, and she just had no idea. And in those months, keep in mind, this is 2019 to early 2020. So COVID happened, right?
Yep.
So there was literally the world changed. On one hand, I was like, I wish the world would just stop for a second so I could catch my breath.
Mm.
And then it did.
Mm.
And then it was scarier than ever. So
Right.
it's like, okay, everything feels so uncertain. In that time, I'm curious by nature. I'm doing all the research. I'm searching, trying to get an understanding of what is this grief thing? Why is it so disruptive? And what resources are there for siblings? And what I found was all the brochures with all the, like, you know, older people who also are worthy and deserving of all the grief support in the world. I'm not
But it's
saying
not
it's
our
not, it's
grief.
just, you don't see your, that's not
Right.
my grief. Yeah, that's
Right.
not, I didn't see myself in any of these resources. I said, where are the resources for people my age who lose siblings like this? He died of fentanyl poisoning. There's another layer of the loss, right?
Right,
The
right.
stigma, the trauma, he died in my grandparents' house. So it's like all these elements that were like, okay, where is the help for this, right? So at the time, I found maybe one grief support group, and that was it. And I said, am I not supposed to be grieving? Because clearly there's no information. Therefore, I must be overdoing it. There's something wrong with me. Sibling loss is not that serious, clearly.
Mm.
Nobody cares. So
Right.
something is clearly wrong with me. And then you try to talk to your parents. I thought I was going to lose my parents. Keep in mind COVID, everybody's like, oh, all the
Yep.
people are losing family left and right. So I was like, oh my goodness, who's next, right? And I had this paranoia about like, who's next? And one day I remember I was walking through my grandmother's house and I felt like my heart was, I guess it's what I would imagine a heart attack feels like. And I got terrified. I held onto the wall. It was so scary. I held onto the wall and stabilized myself. I realized I was fine. And all of a sudden I wondered, can grief kill you? Can you die by grief? Can
A heart
this thing
attack.
kill you?
That's
Because
a
this
hard
is
grief.
really bad.
Yep.
Right. That's when I discovered Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, which is broken heart syndrome. And that was the first moment that I remember thinking, okay, grief is not just feeling. Grief is physical. Grief is a mind, body, spirit experience. And I need to take a back seat because I've been trying to beat this thing with the tools and resources that I have. And clearly it's not going anywhere. It's like I'm pedaling in the same place.
Right.
So that's when I slowed down, and we can pause whenever you want because,
No,
podcasts
you're
are here. I can keep talking.
good. No,
going,
you
yeah.
are so good.
Thank you. So I was looking for all these resources, and then that's when I said, I can't be the only person. People die every single day, the same way that people are born every single day. So where are all the other people like me going through this?
Mm.
So I decided to put like a Batwoman signal out to the world without disclosing too much information. That was an Instagram account that I created to express my feelings and just speak it into the void or share it into the void with zero expectation of anything. I started posting, and like within days, people started flooding my inbox and commenting and sharing their story. And I said, okay, that's interesting. So really cool to know I'm not alone, sad for them, and also like happy to know I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And the things that they were saying could have come from me. They were saying the exact same things that I was feeling. And I said, okay, so how come nobody's talking about this? Like, where are the conversations about this that has literally changed our lives? And the more I played with that, and I'm saying, very succinctly, but this took about 3.5 years, this whole search, this whole coming to terms with being able to speak about it out loud, having the desire to build a platform for it, all these things, it took a little bit of time. And around the 3.5-year mark, which is when I say like the fog lifted, and that's when my nervous system came back online, the shock wore off, which is a blessing and also really hard because all of a sudden you're feeling everything. I said, okay, well, the idea of a podcast keeps calling me. And if nothing more, if I could just say something and it resonates with that one person, then I did my job. That's it.
Right.
I don't know if this happened. I would imagine you experienced something similar, but the moment you say it, there are people just eager to share their story, to say me too, to connect with you.
Yep.
It's amazing. And I
Yeah.
was not expecting that because I had zero expectation. I didn't even know what a podcast was. I had to like figure it out on my own. And it was incredible. I thought I wanted to experiment with my own grief and understand my own grief. And to an extent, it still does that. And yes, that's part of the mission. And also, I started realizing this thing is so much bigger than me. This thing feels like I'm meeting a moment in time where these conversations are needed. And for whatever reason, life tapped me on the shoulder and say, go, let's talk about it. You be one of the conduits. And the rest has been history. That started in March, going to be 3 years, March 30th, 2023.
Oh, congratulations.
And yeah, thank you.
That is awesome.
And, this is how I get to be Joseph's sister. That's my brother's name, Joseph Rodriguez. This is how I get to be his sister. This is how I get to practice continued bonds. And this is how I get to connect with beautiful souls like you.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Thank you for sharing.
We were just talking about that, about continued bonds and keeping the relationship going, where it's like people think that those that we've loved have passed on and you can't keep the relationship strong, but you actually can. You just have to, our last host said, like, find creative ways to connect.
Right.
Absolutely. And I can't remember if it was Liz or Jess who said this on the first episode. I heard your first episode ever, which was really good.
Oh my gosh.
That was our first
This is going to be our first year, believe it or not. And when we came out, we recorded, right? I think it was
mid-March.
And then our first episode aired on March 30th because we wanted to close out International Women's Month. So we're like very aligned. But go ahead. Wait, what were you
very aligned? I love it. No, I love that. It's very serendipitous. And I have another girlfriend who also created her podcast in March. So there's something about March. And, this creative spirit.
Definitely. The month of communication.
Spring.
Yes. And Women's Month and all the things. So I'm here for all of it.
Yeah.
You were going to quote something from the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know who said it, but that you connected with your sibling through dreams. I think it was you, Liz, that somebody dreamt about their sibling and felt like they had signs and all these things. So the moment I heard about continued bonds, which is death ends a life, but doesn't have to end a relationship. That opened my eyes, because I think what was the most painful is that quote of grief is love with nowhere to go. I've also heard grief is love with everywhere to go.
Yes.
So what I said, okay, if grief is this thing that needs an outlet, then I need to find this outlet.
Sure.
And at first it was journaling, nature, the podcast, connecting with people on social media. And also I needed something where I could update my brother on what was happening in my life and my parents' life. And it hurt me so much that he doesn't get to see them grow older and see how their life evolves and how they're carrying on. And I started this journal. I think it's actually right behind me. Anyway, it's around here somewhere, where I have conversations with my brother, and I have years worth of like what I would have said to him had he been here. That's how Continued Bond started.
Have you seen, and I sent it to Liz, and I was like, I think we should do this. We should just do the, I'm not one for trends, right? But I'll jump on a trend. I'll jump on if it's a cute one. And it was two sisters that were like, we lost our mom. It's been 3 years. Let's catch you up. She's a bully. She's a vapor. Yeah. And like, they were just like snitching each other out. And I was
so
just
funny.
And I was just like, it just brought me back to an episode that when we did with Allison and Lynn, that I was just like, and Nina, you and I are very aligned in the sense, because you lost your brother September 2019. I lost my brother February 2019. So again, right, going into COVID, dealing with he would have been like, do you see outside is closed? Like, and
then you both came up with the idea for a podcast.
And yes, and that it was the same thing. I gave her a shout, and she was only not even 2 months into her grief, and I was just like,
we started recording 4 months after.
Yeah, because it was just So even with that, have you thought about jumping on that trend that they're like, oh yeah, like let's have a conversation with? But like, I feel like there's like certain things that I'm just like, well, mommy was doing this. Like, like I don't know if I want to
like mom's growing out her hair.
Yes, right.
Dad's missing another tooth.
You know what?
Well, I don't know if I'm seeing that trend, but
it just started. It just started. I'll send it to you. It just started. It was something, and I thought it was cute because I had sent it to Liz, and I was like, I think Because obviously, and our siblings, we all knew each other. We go back to the
Right. And we
fifth
were
grade.
all so goofy and we were all
Yes.
so silly and like,
Mm.
We would go to we would go to the field, and
yeah,
go sit
yeah,
on the
yeah.
rocks. And
Right,
I
right,
mean, now
right.
it's all like fenced up and whatever they did with it, you know, evolution, I guess.
I love
Let's
that.
go.
I love that they knew each other because that's another element that you get to experience together. I
Yeah.
think
Right.
that's really I'm very grateful that for example, my husband knew my brother, but because he
Yeah.
struggled with addiction, I didn't know his quote unquote like friends. I wouldn't even call them friends, but
Mm,
some of the people that he knew, right?
associated with.
Yeah,
So there's
support
this
circle.
huge void of like, I wish somebody would come to me and tell me stories that I've never heard. And
You'll
I
get
don't
them.
have that. And
You'll get them.
yeah.
You'll get them. But I feel
As
like
time goes
as
on,
time goes on, you'll get them, and you'll get them from the most random people.
yeah,
The
like
most
I
and I'm
love
like,
that.
wait,
Yeah.
I'm like, how did you know but then again, it's like I'm the oldest sister. She's the oldest sister. So, they always followed me
I'm the
on.
older sister. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
my goodness. Oh,
I know there's so
children. What a thing.
I did just get a little
Oh
chill.
my God. So this is basically what inspired you to start your podcast.
Yes, it was one to explore my own grief, two
Mm-hmm.
to connect with other people. I called it like my Batwoman signal to the world, if you will. And then third, when the moment it dawned on me that this is not about me, it was okay. This is how I get to make meaning and be of service. So that's what opened up this channel, and it's taken on a life of its own.
I love it. And then I wanted to ask you what does it mean to you about being grief informed? Right? Because there's a lot of people they just don't know. And we have an episode about etiquette and the whole social media stuff and just things to say, things not to say. Like, we kind of went through a plethora of things with grief, but what does that mean to you?
I'll start with the story. So at the memorial, there was, it's the first time we do this. We have never lost, my brother or my parents lost a son before. So we're all first timers here. We don't know what the heck the etiquette is. So after the viewing and all the things, my dad's like, okay, I guess we have to go now. And it was so weird because, I guess content warning here, but like, he was at the casket. We had an open casket, which
Okay.
was a last minute decision. I didn't want to see him originally. And then last minute I said, okay, yes, I do. And so we're leaving the room and he's in the casket. And it was just like, okay, do we just leave? Like, do we just like turn around, get in our car and go home? This is the weirdest thing,
Right.
So I think this gentleman who worked there, who's an older gentleman, kind of saw that interaction between my parents and I. We were just kind of like, what do we do? And he paused, he came to us. He said, take your time. This is the last time you're going to see him in physical form. Do not rush this. Okay.
Mm.
And he said, he said it in such a way, like with such deep connection and care and understanding that it made us slow down. And my dad looked at him and he said, hey, what advice do you have? And the gentleman said, I lost my son too. I know where you are right now.
Wow.
And he said, and my dad said, what advice do you have for us? And he said, oh gosh, you are going to hear the craziest thing from people. People are going to tell you the darndest things, were his exact words.
Mhm.
And from now on, you are going to look them in the eye, put your hand on their shoulder and say, you have no idea what you're talking about. And just leave it at that. Like, he's like, do not absorb what these people are going to say because you don't know until you know, until
Correct.
you're there.
Yes.
So grief informed, to answer your question, that I think was my first introduction because I said, interesting that out of all the things he could have said, that's what he chose to say. I'll put a pin on that one and come back to it later because it was weird. It
Right.
seemed weird at the time. It almost felt like a warning. And so sure enough, people said the craziest things and you feel it's insult to injury. There's
Yes.
this expectation of how you should be grieving, how long it should take, what you shouldn't be doing, how other people expect you to be. And that gap between what the experience is and what people expect of you is where the suffering comes in. So in my search for answers, I studied under Megan Devine, got the certification with her just to become grief informed. And I learned the part of me that was searching for an endpoint, that called my friend desperately saying, when does this end? That is under the assumption, or that presumes, that grief is something to get over. And grief is something that we must put behind us.
Right.
And that once you do that, you go, quote unquote, like back to some kind of normal. So being grief informed is the understanding that grief is not a pathology. It is not something to be fixed. It is a normal human response to to loss and life altering change.
Right.
I would, with everything that I've heard, in years since, the circles that I've held, the people that I've helped, the conversations and all the things, I would argue that grief is your initiation. It is a portal. It is the rite of passage to the next level of your life. And I'm not necessarily saying level up or down. I'm just saying the
Yeah.
next iteration of your life, right? So it's our initiation into change. And we have disconnected from it so much, from that rite of passage, from that sacred moment of moving through major, major change that alters the mind, body, spirit,
Right.
that and part of it is because you need to get back to work. You don't have time to be, searching doing your inner search and thinking about things and taking time off and all these things based on how our current system is set up. But it is a normal thing. The pain in and of itself is the static element. So it's the unchangeable element. Your person died.
Yeah.
Your divorce is settled. Your house burned. Like the things that you cannot undo. And then there's the suffering. The suffering is the dynamic element, or the changeable element under our control. So a lot of this grief work and being grief informed is knowing that you tend the pain and you adjust the suffering. And you tend the pain, understanding that it's not going to change, and there's a level of acceptance that we need to arrive to that. And we adjust the suffering in that we release our judgment of ourselves, of each other, of the situation, of our expectations. We don't should on ourselves. We learn to expand our capacity to hold the magnitude of this life experience. And that is what it means to be grief informed. Versus the opposite of that would be thinking of grief as an ailment, kind of like depression or anxiety or something that needs to be fixed and medicated and cured. There are people who believe that. I do not believe that. I think grief is an overarching experience. Grieving is our personal relationship to our grief, and that changes over time. That's why grief is universal and grieving is personal, and that will evolve as you evolve.
Right. I love that. I love just everything, how you just
Define
explain.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel that a lot of people, they don't know that, right? And they're always looking for a place to figure out, like, what is this? Why is this happening to me? All the good things in there. Um, what was, because obviously, and you have your own podcast as well. What is, I don't know, what was one of your favorite conversations?
There are so many.
I know.
One that comes to mind is with Rosemary Watola Tromer. She's a poet,
Okay.
and she wrote her latest book is called The Unfolding. She lost her son to suicide.
Yeah.
And I remember when she said something that just cracked open an openness in me about the way I navigate grief and the way I see life. And she said that when she lost her son, her best friend at the time said, "Oh, honey, like now you get to carry his love light forward." And that phrase just, gave me chills, resonated with me. And I said, that's what we do. We get to carry their love light forward. And it reframed how I see life. I say, I live a get to life. I get to live a get to life.
Right.
And as painful and as heavy as that is at times, I get to do this and I get to carry the light forward.
Well, it's
So
that gratitude.
that interview,
Yeah, it's that
yes,
gratitude. You have to, yeah, and just be thankful every day, that, thank you for waking me up in the morning. Thank you that I can move my body the way that I could, right? And we get to do that. We're fortunate
yes,
and blessed.
yes.
Right.
And I get to still be his sister. It's like, it's
That's right.
so much of the story we tell ourselves. That's another interview that, that popped into my mind with Lisa Kefauver of Grief is a Sneaky Bitch. She has the book and the podcast, and she helps people with narratives, reframing their narratives. So it's,
Okay.
we could say this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me and I'm never going to recover from that. And we can hold space for the pain, the reality of that pain, because we do feel like that sometimes. Early grief, I said, I'm never going to smile again. Like life is never going to be joyous again. It's just gray and dark, and that I'm going to accept that.
Right.
And also, change is our only constant, and life eventually does gain its color back and its beauty back and its sparkle back in one way, shape, or another. It's not going to be the same as before, but it does change.
Right.
So I really loved her reframes with how she, thinks about grief. And then the third one, just because I have her book here, is Dr. Tasha Faruqi. Her story is one of the ones that like just got to me because she has one of her daughters is in hospice.
Wow.
And she has a genetic disorder that is the only one of its kind in the entire world. There is no other person like her. And it's a degenerative disease. So it's basically like them enjoying whatever time they may have with her and praying for a cure, even though there is 0 point of reference for her disease. Wow. And she wrote a book about it called Keep Your Head Up. And her story just like blew my mind.
Wow.
The strength and resilience and like charity throughout them going through all of that, giving back to us,
Right.
writing and communicating and finding all these ways throughout their grief to still be a creative and push out these different narratives about grief so that we can all benefit from it. You know, it's amazing, actually.
Yeah, and it's helped them process. She's very open in her social media channels about their journey. And I realized somebody told me this quote. It's a proverb. I think it's a Swedish proverb. Sorrow shared is sorrow halved, and joy shared is joy doubled. And that's the premise of what we do. These stories are not self-serving or, to, I don't know, whatever judgment a lot of people say about somebody sharing their story. It's more when somebody shines a light on their situation, it helps light the path for the next person.
Right.
And it brings people together. Yeah.
Right. Passing the.
Right. I'm so glad she said that because none of this is vanity.
No.
Do I put lip gloss on before we start?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sure did.
Absolutely.
Well, lips still need to be moisturized.
It is respect for my sister that I don't come on here with chapped lips.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, people are like, what is all this?
Well, what's
like,
going on here?
cover yourself. They're like, what is this? I'm like, God,
but it's true.
My father.
But it's true. And we talk about it so often how we'll write an episode or we'll plan stuff out or book studio time. And then sometimes we're like, oh, today is a lot. It's going to take a lot out of us. It's going to take a lot out of us. But, it's for the greater purpose of community, of, man, when I felt seen, when I was going through my grief, that just made it so much easier, even if it was just easier for that day.
Right.
So why not want to like continue that path for other people? Like, oh my God, like even with the sibling loss,
That's it.
I felt like when it happened, I like went into, I think I put something, either it was in TikTok or in Google or something. And like, I found somebody was talking about losing their little sister. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not alone. Just that feeling of not being alone is like all the reason why we do this.
Well, and I have to say, and I think I've never even mentioned this on any of our episodes, that, there were sibling losses that we've encountered in like my personal life, like, my mom's friend, like lost a sister, us growing up, Lisa Davis, actually today's her anniversary. It's crazy. She was like an older sister to me. And like when she passed, like I didn't understand. And I think that is exactly it. You don't know what it is to feel, to go through it unless you experience it. Right. And I feel like you really nailed it. Like I guess it was one of the workers there at the funeral, Paula, with the one that put his hands on your dad's shoulder, because it's really true. You don't know. So, again, right, Nina, like you were kind of researching, like, what do you do with sibling loss? For me, I was like, oh no, I get 4 days of bereavement. I go back to work. You got people coming in. I work in an office. I work, I was a school counselor. So everybody knew, like, I'm working at the high school I went to school. I graduated from. My brother went there. They knew him from playing basketball. Like, so it was interesting just to try to get back to normal. And they had like all these expectations of me. And I was like, I can't do it, guys. I'm like, really sorry. Like, I'm really trying. And even friends, right? Like we actually talked about that too. Like they just wanted me to go back to, oh no, let's go have fun. Let's party. Let's, have some wine. Let's go out dancing. And I was just like, guys, I'm not there. But I would force myself to be there, which forced, I guess, myself to really address the grief. And there was just nothing, and nobody else really experienced it. Like they didn't know how to experience it. So I
Right.
couldn't fault them, right? In the same breath. But at the same time, there was no compassion. It was like, no, no, get back to it. Go be a party animal. And it's like, no, no,
And
sorry.
in their mind, I'm sure it's like their way of trying to help you. They're like, oh,
Right.
let's bring some joy back into her life. Let's show her that life still goes on. And I know most people are just full of good intentions and also they miss the mark so
Yeah.
much. Actually, the friend that I called about her mother and, asked her how long this was last, before I asked her all that, I said, I'm so sorry for everything I ever told you after your mom died. Like I take it all back. I had no idea. I'm so sorry. It's what I told her.
Yeah.
Because same, right? Like those friends trying to help you, those friends trying to cheer you up and the best of intentions. It's like they're
Right.
trying to take you away from the thing you want to get back and close to and try
Right.
to anything that takes you away from whatever last point of connection you had with this person feels like betrayal or can feel like betrayal.
Absolutely. And it's just, again, right. There was just really not a lot of things out there for sibling loss. And obviously, like you came up with it and we obviously, and then we've just obviously connected with so many people, which I thought was like just amazing. I just thought
Yeah, all the
like
connections.
all the connections. And then like you're connected with them. So it's like this, like I said, like I think I said it in the last one where we're like this gang.
The grief gang.
We're the grief gang. Like we're,
Yeah.
and I think there is
Yeah.
somebody called the grief gang on Instagram too.
Yeah, I think she's in the UK. Yeah.
Is she? Okay. Oh, see, I didn't even know that. I think we follow her too. What shouldn't be seen as, well, what shouldn't be seen like for grief, like something to be fixed. Like, why shouldn't it be like that? Like, why shouldn't we be like, okay, well, you know what? Here's Band-Aid.
That's a really good question. And actually it's coming up front and center with a lot of companies that are creating AI for grievers
What?
so there's people that are trying to create essentially an AI version of your person because with the theory that you can still foster a connection with some type of version of them. Like you could still have the conversations that you didn't have. So instead of me writing on the journal, it would be talking to this AI. I personally do not subscribe to that because to
Yeah.
answer your question, I do believe that there is healing and wisdom, and you need to go through the grieving process to be able to integrate, because the most important part of grief is the integration
Yeah.
of it and
Yeah.
of the loss and of the experience. And that takes time. You cannot expedite that. So
Right.
that takes the time that it takes for each person. And that may be months, that may be weeks, that may be years. Some people I've heard decades. So depending on the loss and if there was trauma involved, if there, there's layers to these types of loss, to each loss, excuse me.
Right.
So I subscribe to the wisdom that it is a process we must walk through.
Right.
And as much as we live in the context of a grief-averse, grief-illiterate society that tries to bypass anything remotely close to a feeling, and there are big feelings with loss and grief, we still have to go through that process. It is not something to be fixed because the process itself is the healing. The
Right.
healing is in walking through grief and walking through your life, and it eventually transmutes into something else. And that doesn't leave you. That becomes a part of you. And once you integrate it, once you stop pushing it away or pushing it down, it changes you. And that is the whole point of the process. So
Yep.
to try to bypass it, skip it, push it away, the AI thing, I'm just not convinced. I'm sorry. Some people subscribe to it. Great. If that helps you, great. But I'm
Yeah.
not
I
subscribing
just
to it
don't think
because
an
it
AI
feels like that
version.
bypassing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't feel like an AI version is going to really capture the essence of who this person was. I mean, remember, this is somebody you probably have 4,000 inside jokes with,
Right.
like,
And then where's the healing in that too? Like, right?
yeah.
Like, where's the acceptance that this person isn't here? I mean, maybe some people do need to see, I guess, like, because you know how, like, there's different types of learners. You have your kinesthetic, you have your auditory, you have visual learner. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about, I'm with you. I mean, no judgment if that's what
That I say,
that-
look at it. look at a picture, look, all the things. And also what, where's the consent, right? So would
Right.
the other person want to be remembered that way? Would they want their data to be put in the system to be
Right.
this robot version of them? Like, where is that? What about their wishes? Did they consent to this, right? Maybe if a person leaves that behind as, yeah, sure, you could do that, then great, go for it. And also, we are not in a place with AI, for example, where we could trust it with our most vulnerable moments in life. There are articles about teenagers who have completed suicide because of some prompt they received through, I'm not going to name them, but like the AI companies, right?
Mhm.
So where are the safeguards
Right.
when you're dealing with a human in their most vulnerable and when they feel the most broken, confused, not in their body. Sometimes they don't even feel like they're in their own
Easiest
life
to
or in their own
manipulate.
body. I sure didn't, right?
Right.
And when you're holding space for these people, you have to have so much tact and so
Yeah.
much knowledge and wherewithal about how to hold space for them because it could be risky, right?
Right.
So where are the safeguards with this? Where's the consent? I'm
Right.
not even going to talk about the environmental factor, but
Um,
there's
whole
all
other
these things. Yeah.
whole other thing. What does post-traumatic growth look like for you?
It's how I make meaning, in all the ways. So post-traumatic growth for me looks like the podcast. It looks like the conversations that I've held, the books that I've participated in,
Mhm.
and all the conversations that are coming out of it, all the meaning that's being made, all the connections that are being made. And it's been beautiful.
I know that you were, I was reading, and while I was, kind of doing your description and everything that, you were, you write on Get Griefy. And we just followed them probably like a month or two ago. But like you're an avid writer for them. I mean, I think this is phenomenal. What other work have you done?
So Get Griefy is incredible, and they started around the same time, about 3 years ago. I feel like there's been this boom of like creators in the grief space over the
Yeah.
last 3 years post COVID. So I'm starting to write for Women Who Podcast magazine. I did Resilience AF Volume 2, so that's an anthology with other people who have gone through life altering circumstances. And I have my Substack, which is called Resting Grief Face, where I just kind of play with the writing because eventually I want it to be a book, but I want to find my writing style. So I've been playing with all of those.
That's amazing. That's so amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I just feel like you're so busy and I love it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like trying to catch up. I was like, oh my God, there's so much I have to catch up on. And no, I mean, listen, I have time, right? We have a little bit of time that we can catch up. And I knew that I needed to have you on. And I know that like, even when I was discussing with Liz, I was like, oh my God, like she gets it. Like it was one of those like, she's our
Yeah.
girl.
We always we appreciate every single one of our guests.
Yes.
But because the sibling part of grief is so I would say like not understood by a society,
Right.
it's really important that when we connect, because it's like we all understand each other,
Yeah.
but how do we get other people to understand it?
Right.
So it's like what worked for you, what worked for us, and how we can, right. We've said this before where we say like grief is an intelligence that you have to integrate into the rest of your life. So it's like, how are we all doing that? So
Right.
we're so grateful for you for coming on.
Absolutely. Could you just tell us?
And
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm grateful for the space you've created
Oh,
because even as somebody who's had all these conversations, being a bereaved sibling with bereaved siblings and all the things, I still find myself minimizing my own grief quite often.
yes.
Yeah.
Because when I hear about like a mother losing her child, I'm like, oh, well, mine is not to that level. And I have to remind myself it's not a competition. These are not the grief Olympics. My grief is just as valid. Right.
Right.
So, yeah.
What would you tell someone like that just lost someone? Well, let's keep it on sibling, right? Because I feel like we're in the niche of the sibling loss. What would you tell someone? Like, I mean, I know obviously what we would say, but what would you say to someone, you know, who's newly like they just lost a sibling?
I always say, show yourself grace. This is as hard as it feels. And it's going to take probably a lot longer than you realize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as a sibling, your grief absolutely matters. Who you are in relationship to them, who you are and were changes over time. I
Right.
remember when somebody said, when I went back to work, somebody said, well, now that you're an only child, and she kept talking and just the words faded. And I was like, what did she just say?
And you're like hanging on
With
those
that,
words. Oh my
Yeah, because
gosh.
it's like that's not by nobody would
Right.
want,
Right.
right.
you know,
And
like
she said it so, like, it just flowed so naturally out of her mouth that I said, does she know something I don't? Like, am I now an only child? And after that, I started questioning my own
Good question.
identity.
Yeah.
And there's a book named Always a Sibling by Annie Sclaver Orenstein, and she did research on sibling loss. And so a lot of my understanding and my ability to stand on my own 2 feet came from that book, and understanding that we are so worthy of being seen and validated. And I'll even go a step further. I held a virtual event, a 3-part series on sibling loss. I think it was like 1 or 2 years ago. And initially, the organizers were like, well, we've never done one like this, so I don't know if it's going to be well attended or not, but go for it. Like, you
Okay.
never know. Long story short, it got the most registrations out of any event that they've ever had. So it just
Wow.
validated
Yeah.
we want to be seen, we want to be heard. There
Yes.
is room for us. We are so worthy
Do
of
matter.
being, validated.
what
Absolutely.
was the name of the book again? Always a Sibling?
Always a sibling.
And it's
Yeah.
so interesting that again, there's just so many things that I'm just
Actually,
like,
just have it right here. So it's this one.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's pretty too.
and it is pretty. And everything that you say is just like just more and more like just confirmation that this podcast needed to keep going on. And not that we stopped or anything like that. Again, we had snowstorms, everything got pushed out. But besides that, like just to keep going, because we just really don't know who we're going to reach, and we always want to make sure we at least reach one person. But I just think there's just so many different things that you've touched on that I'm just like, my mind is like just blown, because there's somebody posted, well, my March 2019, if I look back to my March and look what March 2026 is today, how different would it be? And I'm just like, oh my God, please, I was in a blur, right? Because I was only a month in grieving my brother. And then I was just, just a lot of the things that you said, I really hope it resonates with our audience, although which I feel like we're all in the same circle. But I feel like this is different only because it is about sibling loss. And I think that, just paying more attention to that and giving that much more light to sibling loss, that it can finally come to its own thing, right? Because like we've talked about several times that, some people are like, oh, well, you have another sibling. Or they said to her mom, oh, well, you have another child.
Yeah, like when I like my daughter passed, like, do you have another one? Yeah. They're like, oh, no, at least you have like
It's
one.
just your spare kid. Yeah.
Your spare kid. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah. The
right.
same as my mom. Oh, well, at least you still have what? Like, that was my little brother. My mom, that was her baby boy. Are you nuts?
Right,
Like,
right.
like, how do you, but then it just goes back
And
into like, what is the most outlandish thing have you ever heard? And it was like,
Yeah.
mine was, I'll tell you this, mine was for someone I was friends with. And I've mentioned this a few times on here. Trust me, it's not resentful. I think I need to probably clarify that, right? Because it's not
You're
resentment
like,
or
I've
anything.
let it go. Right.
I've let it go, but it just comes up in conversation, was just like, death is the inevitable. Get over it. 7 months in.
Oh, okay. I'm over it now. Thanks.
Yeah. I'm like, here. Hey, God, look, I'm over it. You know what
A
I
lot
mean?
of times when people say things, you're just like, yeah, I've never thought of that. Like, obviously, I've
It's like
thought
the
of
verbal
that.
diarrhea
Yeah.
that comes out of their mouth, It's okay, you got to share. What is the most like cringe thing you've ever heard?
I
My
would
brother
say,
never had kids. I don't have kids. And somebody in our family, I'm not going to say who, said, well, you know what? It's going to make your parents happy now. And I'm like, what? I wasn't even thinking, because I couldn't think at the time. I was like, okay, what? She's like, you need to have a baby so they could replace your brothers, so you could bring joy back in their life. I'm like, oh, thank you. And I just hung up. It's just like, I don't have time for this.
no responsibility on you.
Right.
Oh my
Right.
gosh.
And it's just wild. And that's another thing somebody doesn't prepare you for. Like, part of sibling grief and, the loss of a sibling is you lose a part of your parents.
Yeah.
And nobody and nothing prepares you to seeing your parents grieve their son or daughter. Like, that is a whole experience in and of itself.
Yeah.
And just being an outside person looking in at them, and their loss and their grief, and while carrying your own, and vice versa, because your parents also see you.
Right.
It's a wild experience.
It's such a big part of sibling grief is watching your parents go through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, because you know what it feels, you feel the pain, and then you look to them and you're like, whoa, like their whole, like my mom carried this person, like, whoa, you know, like, So it's like the sympathy, but a lot of times it causes us to minimize our grief.
Right. And I think it also puts that pressure. I think it also puts pressure on us too, because it's like, well, they're grieving. Sure, it minimizes us, but I'm just kind of like, okay, well, they're grieving, so am I. But dang, that pressure, talk about some have a kid. Lord.
Yes. Yes. And also, like, what is your role, right? Because for the first couple of years, I gave my parents' gift on behalf of my brother and I. And I would sign what I think he would have said. And then 2 years down the line, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I don't know what he would have said. Maybe they would have fought and they were like, angry at each other, and he didn't want to show up to a family function. Like, I don't know. So what am I doing? And I had to sit with that. And I said, you know what? I'm not him. And I had to separate that responsibility that I felt to carry his name forward and his legacy and all these things. And I said, I get to carry his love light forward, but I don't have to live his life.
No.
So I had to, that was like another layer that I had to process.
Wow. Oh my gosh. But I do want to thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
I know that, we kind of have to watch your baseball game. No. I kid, but I loved meeting you, and I hope that, maybe if you're up in Jersey or we're down there, we'll ever, just go grab a coffee
Absolutely.
and kind of hug it out and just really just embrace
Absolutely.
the community, and just really, I really enjoyed our conversation today. I think it was just, it was well needed.
Yeah,
It was well needed.
absolutely. Thank you so much for making time.
And thank you for our audience.
Thank you
Thank you so
both.
much for listening and watching us. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast. We're on Instagram. We are also on TikTok. I think I got it all. I think we go through this every episode because I always have to make sure I have a mental checklist. And we're also on Threads. There you go. We're also on Threads too. So you can check us out. And you can also, Nina, where can they find you?
Absolutely. They can find me at griefandlight.com. Grief and Light on all the platforms, also social media. I'm no longer on TikTok, but I am on Threads and Instagram. So yeah, see me there.
Excellent. And I hope you guys be able to find her. And thank you everyone so much for the continued support. And you're not alone.